All right, let's dive into this deep dive into the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, specifically the Audible audiobook.
Mhm.
You requested this one, so we're going beyond just like, a basic book review. We're really trying to look at, the story and what makes this audiobook experience kind of special and unique. So we've
Yeah.
got the audiobook itself ready to go. We've got some excerpts from the book itself. And we've also got some insights from Robert Louis Stevenson and Martin Jarvis's Wikipedia pages. So get ready, because we're going to explore some intriguing questions.
Yes, we are.
Like, what is it about Jekyll and Hyde that keeps people so fascinated with it, over a century later? How does Martin Jarvis's performance elevate this timeless tale? And are there hidden depths to the story that we might have missed on like a first read?
Right. And you know what's really captivating about this deep dive is that we're examining not just the book itself, but also how like a master narrator like Martin Jarvis can make a well-known story even better. It's like adding another layer of artistry to an already pretty fantastic masterpiece.
Yeah, exactly. So for those who might need a quick refresher,
Yeah.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a psychological thriller exploring the duality of human nature. It centers on Dr. Jekyll, this respected doctor, who creates a potion that transforms him into his darker, hidden self, Mr. Hyde.
Right.
But before we, delve into the story, let's
Yeah.
talk about the voice bringing it to life, Martin Jarvis. So this guy, not only does he have an OBE for his contributions to drama,
Yeah.
but his career spans like theater, film, television, and especially radio and audiobooks.
Wow.
He's got this like incredible ability to just embody characters, giving each a distinctive voice and personality. Probably heard him before and didn't even realize
For
it.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So think about it for a second. Like some of his roles, you mentioned you're a fan of the Batman Arkham games. He's the voice of Alfred Pennyworth.
Oh, wow.
That experience, like dealing with the darkness surrounding Batman,
Yeah.
must have given him like some valuable insight into how to portray like Jekyll's internal struggle.
For sure.
Right. And he's not just Alfred. He's voiced characters in everything from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy to The Life and Times of Juniper Lee. Talk about range.
Right. That's incredible.
It makes you wonder if all that voice work, prepping for those roles, helped him perfect Dr. Jekyll's sophisticated tone.
Absolutely. And this brings us to an interesting point about the story itself. Robert Louis Stevenson, the author, also experienced this kind of duality in his own life. He was drawn to both like respectability and bohemianism. And you can kind of see that tension mirrored in Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, it's almost like he poured his own internal struggles into the characters, adding another layer of depth. Yeah. Yeah, and their motivations. It's like he's giving us a glimpse into the human condition, exploring this constant push and pull between what we want and what society expects of us.
Yeah.
Speaking of glimpses, though, let's look at what modern listeners have to say about this audiobook. On Audible, a lot of the reviewers mention how Jarvis's performance really, enhances the listening experience. One listener even commented, "Nice voice, not too much expression, yet kept some feeling to it."
Right.
Which I thought was really interesting, because it seems to suggest that he strikes that perfect balance
Yeah.
between narrating the story and embodying the characters.
Right. It's like he knows when to like step back and let the words speak for themselves and when to really like bring those characters to life, you know?
Yeah.
And another listener said, it did bring more depth and personality to the characters, something I feel is needed when you are reading a dialogue. This really highlights how a skilled narrator can elevate an audiobook beyond just reading words on a page. It's about bringing those characters to life, making the listener really feel like their emotions and stuff.
Yeah, it's like he creates this intimate theatrical experience where you're not just listening to the story,
Yeah.
but you're fully immersed in it.
Exactly.
But let's move from the performance to the content itself for a minute and highlight some specific details from Jekyll and Hyde that really showcase Stevenson's genius as a writer. One scene that always sends shivers down my spine is when Mr. Enfield describes his first encounter with Mr. Hyde. He talks about seeing Hyde trample this young girl and just the unsettling effect Hyde has on everyone around him.
Right, and it's particularly striking because Stevenson never explicitly describes Hyde's appearance,
Right.
He uses evocative language, like something displeasing, something downright detestable, to create this sense of unease and even revulsion in the reader. And Enfield even says he must be deformed somewhere. He gives a strong feeling of deformity, although I couldn't specify the point. That ambiguity makes Hyde even more terrifying, because he becomes like a manifestation of our deepest fears and anxieties about the unknown.
Yeah, it's like Stevenson is tapping into our primal instincts, making us recoil from something we can't even fully comprehend. And then hearing Jarvis deliver those lines in the audiobook, his voice is so chillingly calm amidst that horrifying description. It makes the scene even more potent.
Oh, for sure.
What image comes to your mind when you hear those words? Like, what features would embody pure evil for you?
That's a good question. I think it's fascinating how Stevenson uses that lack of visual detail to engage our imaginations and make each listener's experience unique and personal.
It's a testament to his skill as a writer, that he can evoke such strong emotions and vivid imagery without ever explicitly describing what Hyde looks like.
Exactly. And this ties into a key theme of the book, the tension between Victorian morality and repression. Dr. Jekyll's experiment is driven by his desire to separate his darker impulses from his respectable persona, a struggle that reflects the societal pressures of the time.
Yeah, Jekyll is desperately trying to suppress the Hyde within him, which, as we know, has disastrous consequences.
Yeah.
And the social fallout of Hyde's actions, the scandal, the fear, it further underscores the strict moral code of Victorian society.
Right.
What's so brilliant is that Stevenson uses this fantastical element of the potion to explore very real anxieties about human nature and the consequences of denying our darker selves.
It's a story that continues to resonate because it forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths about ourselves and question what lurks beneath the surface of our own personalities.
Oh, absolutely. But before we jump into the book's dramatic conclusion, let's pause here and hear your thoughts. What has stood out to you so far? What are your impressions of Martin Jarvis's performance? What resonates most with you about the story of Jekyll and Hyde? We'll delve deeper into the book's ending and its implications in the next part of our deep dive. Until then, take some time to reflect on what we've uncovered and see how it connects with your own understanding of this enduring tale. Welcome back to our deep dive into the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's amazing how the story, still resonates with readers, even after all these years.
It really is.
The themes of duality and morality and these hidden desires, they're just as relevant today as they were in Victorian London.
Absolutely. And speaking of relevance, remember how we were talking about Stevenson's life?
Yeah.
And that tension between respectability and bohemianism? Well, there's a fascinating parallel to that in one of Martin Jarvis's other roles, his portrayal of Satine in Disney's Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh, yeah.
Remember him, that villain attending the Badanon meeting?
Yeah.
It's such a departure from the darker characters he often plays, but it just shows his incredible versatility as an actor.
I love that you brought that up.
Yes.
It's like he's constantly challenging himself to explore different facets of human nature, both on stage and in his voice work. And it makes you think, maybe that experience of playing a character trying to reform his villainous ways gave Jarvis a unique perspective on Jekyll's own internal struggle.
Exactly. It's like he's able to draw on those experiences to create a more nuanced and layered performance.
Yeah.
And that internal struggle really culminates in the book's dramatic ending. Remember that chilling line from Jekyll's final confession? I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end.
Oh, yeah.
It's heartbreaking because it shows how Jekyll ultimately succumbs to the power of Hyde, becoming consumed by the very darkness he tried so desperately to control.
It's a cautionary tale, reminding us that suppressing our darker impulses can sometimes make them even stronger. It's a battle that I think rages within so many of us even today. If Stevenson were writing Jekyll and Hyde in the 21st century, what modern anxieties or societal pressures do you think he would use to illustrate that inner struggle?
That's a good question. I mean, maybe the pressure to present a perfect image on social media while battling insecurities behind the screen,
Right.
or the constant struggle to maintain a work-life balance in our always connected world.
Yeah, those are great examples. It's like the core themes of the story are timeless, but the specific anxieties and pressures that fuel those themes evolve with each generation.
Absolutely.
It makes you really appreciate the enduring power of Stevenson's work and how it continues to spark these kinds of discussions.
Yeah, it's a story that forces us to look inward and examine those parts of ourselves we might prefer to keep hidden.
And I think that's part of what makes Martin Jarvis's narration so compelling. He doesn't shy away from those darker emotions.
Yeah.
He embraces them, bringing both Jekyll's refinement and Hyde's raw primal energy to life with his voice.
Right. It's like he understands that the true power of the story lies in exploring those shadows within ourselves, those aspects of our nature that we might fear or try to deny.
Yeah, and by giving voice to both Jekyll and Hyde, Jarvis kind of invites us to do the same, to confront our own inner demons and grapple with the complexities of being human. And that's where the real magic of this audiobook lies, isn't it? It's not just about listening to a story. It's about engaging in a conversation with ourselves, prompted by Stevenson's words and brought to life by Jarvis's performance.
Yeah, for sure. It's about recognizing that the battle between good and evil isn't just something that happens in a Gothic novella. It's a struggle that plays out within each of us every day. And Jekyll and Hyde gives us this framework for understanding that struggle. It prompts us to ask ourselves, how do we navigate the duality within ourselves? How do we reconcile our desires with societal expectations? And ultimately, how do we choose who we want to be?
Those are profound questions, and I think the fact that this story, written over a century ago, still compels us to ask them, speaks volumes about its lasting impact. And I have to say, experiencing those questions through Martin Jarvis's voice adds a whole new dimension to the story.
It really does. It's like he's guiding us through the labyrinth of Jekyll's mind, illuminating both the brilliance and the darkness that reside with.
And before we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Imagine you were to create a modern-day adaptation of Jekyll and Hyde. What contemporary anxieties or societal pressures would you use to illustrate that eternal battle between good and evil within a person?
That's a challenge to consider. To take the essence of Stevenson's masterpiece and reimagine it for a 21st century audience. What aspects of modern life would best capture those themes of duality and repression and the consequences of our choices? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that as you continue to explore this timeless tale.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We've been exploring the story's themes, the brilliance of Martin Jarvis's narration, and the questions this classic raises about, human nature. But before we wrap things up, let's circle back to one of the most fascinating aspects of the story, Stevenson's portrayal of Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, what's so intriguing is that he never gives us a concrete physical description of Hyde.
Right.
It's all about impressions and feelings. He uses language that evokes this sense of deep unease and even revulsion.
Exactly. Remember that passage where Mr. Enfield describes Hyde as something displeasing, something downright detestable. He can't really put his finger on what it is about Hyde that's so disturbing, but he knows it's inherently wrong. And then there's the line, he must be deformed somewhere. He gives a strong feeling of deformity, although I couldn't specify the point.
Right.
It's that vagueness, that lack of specific detail that makes Hyde even more terrifying.
It's like Stevenson is tapping into our primal fears, the things that lurk in the shadows of our subconscious. Hyde becomes this representation of the unknown, the embodiment of everything we find repulsive and unsettling.
And think about how Martin Jarvis delivers those lines in the audiobook. His voice is so chillingly calm, almost matter-of-fact, which somehow makes the horror of the description even more intense.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's as if he understands that true terror lies in what's left unsaid, in the spaces between the words.
Yeah, it's a brilliant use of vocal performance to heighten the impact of Stevenson's already chilling prose.
Absolutely. And it's not just Enfield who struggles to articulate what's so disturbing about Hyde's appearance. Even Dr. Jekyll, in his final confession, talks about Hyde's contorted features and his sense of loathing for his alter ego.
Right.
Like Hyde embodies everything that Jekyll represses, those dark impulses and primal desires that he tries so desperately to keep hidden.
Yeah, it's like Hyde is a physical manifestation of Jekyll's inner turmoil. A visual representation of the darkness lurking beneath the surface of his respectable persona.
And by leaving Hyde's appearance open to interpretation, Stevenson invites us, the readers, to confront our own fears and anxieties about the darker side of human nature. What do you picture when you hear those descriptions? What features would embody pure evil for you?
That's a powerful question to consider. It forces us to really delve into our own subconscious and examine those aspects of ourselves that we might prefer to keep hidden.
Exactly. And that's the genius of Jekyll and Hyde. It's not just a thrilling tale of horror and suspense. It's a mirror reflecting the complexities of human nature, the constant struggle between good and evil that resides within us all. And Martin Jarvis's performance in this audiobook adds another layer of depth and nuance to that exploration, making it a truly immersive and unforgettable experience. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we encourage you to keep exploring those questions we've raised today. Reflect on the story's themes, consider how they resonate in our modern world, and perhaps even imagine your own contemporary adaptation of this timeless classic.
Yeah, and until our next deep dive together, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those intellectual fires burning bright.